Hello again, rail fans. I've gotten a lot of rail fanning questions recently, but two more than any of the others. First, why do railroads run locomotives back to back? And second, how can I find the schedules of trains in my town? Let's start with that second one. Railroads do not publish freight train schedules. The train profiles, which are the train orders, the orders for the train, they may have departure and arrival times, but those times can vary by hours, especially out on the line of road, midway along their trip. Originating yard delays, crew issues, locomotive and mechanical problems, waiting in sidings for other trains to arrive. Those can all delay trains. So the answer is there are no freight train schedules. There are only time slots. Like Q452 near me, it comes through Lakeland around 6 a.m. every morning, but it can be as late as noon, depending on events. The best advice I can give new rail fans is to join a social media group for your area. There probably is one: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Ask folks about train patterns in your area, what runs when, and so on. That's going to be your best source of intelligence to make the most of your time by the track. Now to the first question. Why do railroads run their locomotives back to back sometimes instead of nose to tail or elephant style? Well, to answer that one, let's get out to the railroad by the tracks. And as many of you know, I like to get out there early. In Florida in July, starting early in the morning really helps. It's 80 degrees at 05:30 this Florida morning. I have a hunch it ain't gonna get any cooler. I'm on the road before daylight, headed east on I-4 toward Lakeland. Lakeland is the world headquarters of the famous public supermarkets. Their offices and warehouses surround the railroading area of Lakeland. Passing Lakeland Connection on Main Street, I spy out the left side window the signal at Lakeland Junction. Red over yellow over red. Medium approach. This probably meant that a train was going in the siding at Lakeland and stopping. 1,500 feet down the road was the Lakeland Connection signal, medium approach medium. Medium speed through this turnout and proceed, approaching the next signal not exceeding medium speed. This time of the morning it had to be Q452, coming out of Miami and stopping in Lakeland to change crews. I chose Lakeland Junction off Kathleen Road for my shooting spot. It's easy to reach, open, and almost always traffic-free. On the Lakeland Junction signal cantilever, there's almost always an osprey on the nest. Lakeland, as the name implies, has a lot of lakes with lots of fish, and ospreys are among the best fisher birds on the planet.
The medium approach, Lakeland Junction, heading northbound.
At 06:45, in came Q452. A refurbished AC-44 leading an ES-44 DC. The engines are running back-to-back. Railroads do this for convenience. Assuming both units are set up to lead, the set does not have to be turned at dead-end terminals like Tampa or Miami, where all road trains have to go back out the way they came in. Engine service teams merely put the locomotive set on the new train it's scheduled for, change the leader setting in the cabs, and that's it. Diesel-electric locomotives can do the same work running forward or backward. 452 is tiny this morning compared to what it's been in recent months. Normally a 12 to 13,000 foot consist. Today he's only about 7,000 feet. I drove around and up to the north end of the Lakeland double track at 10th Street. The signal for the siding, that's the three-head signal on the left, was all red. And a crew bus was down there taking off the inbound crew. 452 would be here a while. Later that morning, I heard activity at South Winston Yard, about a 10-minute drive from Lakeland Junction, depending on traffic. When I got there, 0724 was already rolling in. 52 jumbo-covered hoppers loaded with finished phosphate for fertilizer. I believe this would go north out of Florida on either Q604 tonight or tomorrow's Q452. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of an airplane motor. It's not an airplane, it's the car wheels rolling over newly ground railhead. The big steel wheels rolling across those lateral scratches on the rail make that moaning sound. Won't last long, though. A few weeks of heavy trains like this one rolling over it will smash those scratches right down. When 724 cleared, 0730 came out. Shuttle traffic from Winston to New Wales, Mosaic's huge phosphate plant southwest of Mulberry in the Bone Valley. Here's another example of the back-to-back setup. The leader, engine 3022, pointed south, with two trailing units pointed north. On the return trip, all the crew would need to do is go to the other end, change that to the lead engine, and pull northward. Except in this case, they won't need to do that. 730 is headed south out of Winston Yard on the Bone Valley sub. This will take him past Mulberry to Bradley Junction, where he'll turn west and come into New Wales from the bottom. The southbound 3022 will then be pointed northward. No swap needed. I caught him again at the Mulberry Diamond. Here the Atlantic Coastline's Bone Valley sub crosses the Seaboard Airlines Valrico sub. An SAL Y pattern signal still protects the diamond on the ACL track. I believe this and the one on the other side of the crossing are the last two Y pattern signals still serving on the CSX in Florida. Now, Live Oak doesn't count anymore. It's on the new Florida, Gulf, and Atlantic Railroad, the former CSX Tallahassee sub. It's not often you see a mainline diamond in the middle of a four-lane highway. CSX recently installed this flange bearing diamond to reduce pounding on the intersecting Valrico sub side. It's the busier line, or at least it used to be. Two miles west of here is Mulberry Yard. I set up at the south end, in the middle of the Y, mainly because there was a shade tree over the road here. A K train was just picking up a bad order engine out of the yard and bringing it to Edison. Once again, we're running back to back here, but I think in this case, it's just by chance. Not long afterward, out came K341, another Bone Valley shuttle job, presumably headed to New Wales to pick up and then on to Agrock. Two locomotives running back to back. "10:32 a.m. and another light engine moves out of the yard. 0731 headed down to work North Nichols. Lakeland railfan Max Stevens was here too. He'd just come from catching two EMDs pulling a train into Ridgewood, the Mosaic plant at Bartow. We waited here another hour, but nothing else was happening here, so we headed up to Winston Y in hopes of catching something on the A-line. When I pulled up there, my old railfan friend Joseph and his dad were there. Joseph had already scouted the signals for us.
Jimmy Hammond?
Yeah?
It's a high green back there. On the top.
What is it?
It's a high green.
In about a month, Joseph will turn 3 years old.
It's a high green.
The high green on Track 1 was for Amtrak 91 coming eastward out of its Tampa station stop. Joseph was distracted by another train, this one coming out of Winston Yard. What train is this, Joseph?
453.
Q453. Yep, I think a lot of you young railroad folks are going to be working for this man. in about 25 years. The afternoon heat was getting the best of me, so I headed for the hacienda.
CSX TPO 0123 South Locomotive 1, got to be approaching the Lakeland junction somewhere.
On an afternoon in June, word came down the line that CSX was running its newly refurbished office car train on a quick tour of its Florida main lines. I got some intel that the train would overnight in Tampa, so after it was spotted in Wildwood and then took the A-line side at Vitus Junction, I set up at AY, the A-line entrance to Tampa's Uceda Yard. I met up with local rail fan Micah Woods and his grandmother. We knew we'd hit the jackpot when we saw 3 CSX special agents and more arriving every minute. The cops spotted Micah and presented him with some CSX swag. Very cool.
CSX TP 00123 lead locomotive CSX T1. Got a restricting signal 8Y. Main line into the yard. Southbound out.
In a few minutes, the train arrived. P001. That's a symbol not heard on CSX since before Labor Day 2005, when Hurricane Katrina effectively ended the Sunset Limited on the CSX Gulf Coast line. The Sunset Limited was P001. The shiny business train glided into Uceda Yard carrying its load of railroad brass hats, company executives. In the lead were CSX number 1 and CSX 2, ex-Amtrak engines, EMD F40 PHs, painted now for this train in B&O heritage colors. Note how they're running back to back. In this case, though, I think it's just because they look cool running that way. CSX 1 was formerly numbered 9998 and CSX 2 was 9993. The business fleet has all been renamed. The power car for Champ Davis, popular president of the Coastline from 1942 to 1957. John W. Smith, last president of the Seaboard Airline. John W. Snow, CSX Corporation chairman in the 1990s. Alvin R. Call Me Pete Carpenter, CSX president from 1992 to 99. E. Hunter Harrison, the CSX CEO from March 2017 to December of that year. Michael J. Ward, CSX CEO from 2003 to 2017. Alfred E. Perlman, president of the New York Central and then Penn Central, which I guess is technically one of CSX's ancestors. Hayes T. Watkins Jr., C&O B&O president in the 70s, and then C&O of the newly formed CSX Transportation Conglomerate in the 1980s. John T. Collinson, president of the C&O B&O in the late 70s. And W. Thomas Rice, last president of the Atlantic Coastline and first one of the Seaboard Coastline. The Tom Rice is the train's theater car, stacked rows of seats facing rearward to let riders see where they've been. Uceda Yard has a car repair shop and an intermodal ramp. These days, that ramp handles only 2 daily trains, one in and one out. At one time, the A-line through here was busy enough to need a freight lead to move trains off the main line. Not so in 2021.
CSX TQO46, 21 CSX locomotive, 3246, got a medium clear, AY. Yard lead to the main, northbound out.
At about 1800 every evening, or whenever Amtrak 92 gets out of Tampa, you can see QO46 pulling out for its nightly run to Jacksonville.
QO92 into 152 North Clear Cherry all the way.
In peak season, this train is long enough to require a double or triple out of the yard that will leave it blocking Orient Road for 20 minutes or more. Not so tonight. He's only about 3,700 feet. Here's another train with back-to-back engines. When QO46 reaches its destination at Jacksonville's Duval Ramp, they'll likely cut those engines off the train. If they do that, they'll have the option of putting them on a northbound train or a southbound train without having to run them all the way down to the Y at Duval Connection or the Y at Densmore Connection, a move that could take half an hour or more. There's nearly always UPS business on this train, almost always some trailers. Tonight, not only 53-footers, but the shorter ones, which I believe are 28 feet. The engineer keeps creeping out at 10 miles an hour until he gets word from the car inspector that his whole train is out of the yard and on the main line.
Main line, QO46. 1-5. Thank you, sir. Have a good one. You too.
Then he begins notching up his throttle until he reaches max authorized speed.
4621, CSX 3246. Clear signal. This is signal Mango, northbound.
Not long after that, a local, 0704, comes out of the Navy Spur in Tampa on the nightly run to Winston Yard and back. He'll also be traveling the A-line right on QO46's markers. He told the dispatcher he had a pickup to make at Mango. Since there are no customers on that part of the A-line, the pickup had to be from Mango siding. As I came into Mango, there were the cars, gondolas, and 3 hoppers waiting right next to the road. After a few minutes of figuring out how this would work, I went to the north end of the siding, and I had to move fast because I could hear him coming.
CSX GM 70421, engine 8024, clear. South end of Mango, entering the Lakeland sub, north out.
A few minutes after 1900, and in creeps 0704. When he got to me, he'd already left the bottom of his train back on the main, keeping 5 rock hoppers on the head end.
Give me 545. 3. 2. 5-1. Good, 8024. Alright, 8024, release 3 steps, up riding the point, clear, got a restricting. Shove them back, give me 15 cars.
Clear release on the point, restricting North Mango, main deciding, backing back 15, 8024.
Got it moving.
Pulling past the north end, he would wait for the switch to reverse, then start shoving into the siding, the conductor riding the bottom, calling out the clear track as they went.
10 more, 8024.
10 more, 8024.
5 more, 8024.
Dismount in 5.
2 more. 2 and 1. Down and clear, 1 car to couple.
After coupling onto the pickup cut, they pull back out onto the main line. Again, the conductor counting the cars past the switch.
Up and down and clear, 8024. That's good, 8024.
Upon clearing the circuit, the switch normals back for mainline movement. The dispatcher in Jacksonville having pre-programmed this entire in and out maneuver with an automated signal function called a union route stack.
We'll switch this line. Let's see if we get a signal. Up riding the point, clear. Restricting. Back 15, 80, 24.
Alright, in the clear on the point, restricting North Mango, main to main, back in 15, 80, 24.
Got it moving.
Now the final backing move onto the bottom of his train back there on the main.
Stretch him out, 824.
When the conductor calls for the stretch to ensure the coupling is secure, he laces up the air hose, and then we have to sit here for a few more minutes while the locomotive starts pumping air into the brake line to bring the pressure up along the entire consist. The engine throttles up now while the air compressor does its work. While this is happening, the conductor makes the long walk from the tail end back to the engine. Then he calls the dispatcher for permission to leave.
70421 JS. 421, go ahead. All right, we're ready to leave from where we stand.
But the base radio is a little out of range.
You're breaking up. What'd you say?
So he climbs up on the front porch to give his radio some more height, and it's just enough to work.
We're ready to depart, man, go from where we stand, over. You're not going to get behind the city bar, permission to leave from where you stand, over. All right, understand, permission to leave from where we stand, over.
And off they go. In a few minutes, the dispatcher will call 0704 back to confirm that he did indeed pull those cars out of Mango siding. Mango is not a signaled siding, it's a controlled siding. The difference is the track circuit for the siding ends at the switch, making the siding essentially dark territory, so the dispatcher on his screen cannot see if anything's in the siding or not. If this were a signaled siding, he would get a red occupied light if anything were in there. As my friend, Dispatcher Gordon Deason, puts it, you could remove all the rails, ties, and ballast from a controlled siding, and you could still get a signal to go in it. Now, railroads don't always run their power back to back. It depends on the situation and what's going to happen to them what's going to happen to those engines when they reach their end terminals. I would like to give a shout out to one of our subscribers, David Shea of Zephyr Hills, and his daughter and his grandchildren. David passed away back in June. It was unexpected. And David was a big fan of the channel, so my condolences to David Shea's family. Please hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that, and if you have anything to ask me, tell me, write it in the comments section down below, or email me at railfandanny@gmail.com. Now let's you and I plan to meet up again very soon, somewhere out there on the high iron. And until that happens, this is Danny Harmon, out.